Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as I said in my introduction, we are coming now to our most interesting part of the meeting, with all the respect to our formerly speakers, of course. And why this is interesting? Because it gives us the opportunity to benchmark ourselves. And I asked during my introduction how many people think that we are in the Netherlands the front runners on the water treatment, and there were only 4 who were thinking that we are the front runners. So that makes clear that most of the audience is looking to our foreign guests, because we want to be inspired by you, I think. And the first one who is going to do that is Victor Mertsch. And Mertsch is working for the Ministerium für Klimaschutz, Landwirtschaft, Natur- und Verbraucherschutz des Landes Nordrhein-Westfalen. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very, very nice introduction. First, I have to apologize. I don't speak Dutch. I speak the most spoken language in the world, and that is broken English. Or to say with Eddie Finch, not with Colombo in Dinner for One, I will do my very best. What I am doing at the ministry, I call it Ministry for Environment. I'm responsible for the part of wastewater treatment. That means I have to look for developing new standards, or for fulfilling standards. That means that a lot of people say don't work too much, but I'm responsible too for fundings, and in this field a lot of people say please do more. So what are we doing in the field of post-treatment, so is it called here? And before I tell this, I will tell you a little bit how is wastewater treatment organized in NRW. We have about 654 or 45 wastewater treatment for 18 million people, comparable with the Netherlands. And the amount of wastewater treatment works becomes less and less, and we will have about 600 in 5-6 years. About 300 of this, and this is important, have a population with more than 10,000. And from this 300, 100 have sand filtration. It established about 10, 15, 20 years ago for phosphorus removal. Today we have to look, is it necessary to have these sand filtrations, or can we look for another reason for this part of the wastewater treatment? Altogether, we think we have a high standard. If we look to European standards, if you look for European wastewater standards, but if we look for the fulfillment of the European Water Framework Directive, and we look to our waters, to our rivers, we see we have a lot of problems. This is one part of one water body. We have our 80,000 kilometers of waters, of rivers, parted in 1,800 water bodies. And this is a figure of one water body, and it shows the monitoring 6 years ago, and we had a second monitoring finished now in 2013. And the result is that if you look to chemical standards, you will find that about 20% of the water bodies are in a bad situation. If you look to the ecological standard, about 80% are in a bad situation. And if you look for the reason why are the rivers from the ecological part in a bad standards, you will see that one important reason is the amount of micropollutants. Why is it so? It is so because we look to the smallest animals, and of course for smallest animals the amount of diclofenac, for instance, in nanograms could be relevant. So that is one reason why we look for the removal of micropollutants. But we started 5 years ago, and we started not with focusing to the European standards, but with focusing for our drinking water. We had a big problem in the River Ruhr with perfluorinated chlorinated substances, PFC. And that was the reason to start a program, Rhein to looking what have we to do. And we had not only the Ruhr as a river where we get our drinking water, about 70% of our drinking water comes from rivers. And therefore for us it is very, very important to look for micropollutants. And in the first step, we looked only for the River Ruhr, the amount of micropollutants which are in a concentration that was so high that we had to do something. That are the red ones. And I will show what we have done to reduce the amount of this substance. And when we decided to make a program Rhein, we decided to look much more to all possible micropollutants in our river and to decide what we have to do in the future. And for instance, we looked for diclofenac. And if you look to diclofenac that we made with the material flow modeling, you will see the same, I think, from Switzerland. You will see that a lot of rivers have a maximum of concentration up to the 10 more times than it is possible for a small animal. So it is quite clear there should be something to do. So the question is where to start and from which parts comes micropollutants. And we did a lot of works together with universities to analyze what are the main imports of micropollutants to the rivers. And if you look to the amounts, you will see that about 70 to 80% of micropollutants come from wastewater treatment plants. So we did a lot of more developments from beginning 2008 to now. With 5 million euros, and we looked not only for the reason we looked not only for the rivers, we looked for technologies, and we looked for technologies else in industries and in wastewater treatment plants from communities. And in the following parts, I will show you what we have done when we get the results from this research, in which way we try to reduce the amount of micropollutants coming into the waters. First is that, and I told it before, I'm responsible for fundings. We have a funding, and that means that every wastewater treatment plant operator who decides to build a new, to upgrade his wastewater treatment plant like here, he gets 70% of the investment cost for the upgrading. And for industrial wastewater treatment plants, we do it individual depending on the kind of wastewater treatment, what is necessary in this kind. So what is done with this money? Oh, I forget, and very soon it was very clear that it is not only necessary to speak with wastewater treatment plant operators, it is speak with the whole people, the politicians. It is necessary to speak with governors and so on. And for this, we opened a Kompetenzzentrum Mikroschadstoffe, and the goal is to promote this idea of reduction of micropollutants. Examples of source control in the industry, and I told before we had a big problem along the River Ruhr with some substances, especially with perforated, with PFT. And that means that small companies had to change their wastewater treatment, and very, very extensive change. For instance, ion exchange, Firma Humbert, or Perstov company, they had a problem with Toso. Here we need a very, very expensive wastewater treatment plant, and so we had a lot of small companies who had to spend a lot of money to reduce special micropollutants, which we don't find in every wastewater treatment plant, who we find in special companies or in special industrial fields. And in this field, we will look if we find special industrial fields where we have to do something. We will do it in the next 5 to 10 years. In the same way, we looked for the question, can we reduce micropollutants in hotspots, in so-called hotspots? And that hotspot can be, for instance, a hospital. And we did this in 2 hospitals, and one hospital is Gelsenkirchen. And if you look to the kind of wastewater treatment, you will see it is a wastewater treatment plant like a wastewater treatment plant here. We have to do a biological treatment before remove the micropollutants, and that means that is a very, very expensive kind of treatment. This investment costs were about 1.6 million for only one hospital, and another hospital, this is Waldbröl, we had to spend 2.5 million only for the hospital wastewater treatment. But nevertheless, you will find some hospitals outside the cities, for instance, where it is a possible way to reduce micropollutants. But in total, it is not the way we should go further. But if we look to our 2 hospitals, we looked further to the Netherlands to look what do our neighbors, and a very interesting wastewater treatment plant is this of the René de Graaf Clinic, and in Münster, the University Hospital of Münster, are looking for this kind of treatment, and they are looking if they take a pharma filter like in the Netherlands too. Now I'm coming to the part of wastewater treatment for municipalities and what we had done in this field. We started with 3 wastewater treatment plants. The first one which was built is ozonation plant Bad Sassendorf in the mid. This wastewater treatment plant is in operating since 2009, and we have 2 more. Duisburg-Vierlinden started in 2011 and Schwede 2010. And from this 3 treatment plant, we have not only the costs for investment, but also the costs for operating. It's very important if you're looking for capital costs for reducing micropollutants. In the meantime, we're looking for other possibilities, other technologies. One other technology which is very interesting is Bosman filter from the Netherlands. And this Bosman filter is in a pilot plant. This is a pilot plant figure at the treatment plant of Bahntrup, tested in the last year. And if you combine this with powdered carbon, it is much cheaper than to take a sand filtration. And the city of Bahntrup will build the wastewater treatment plant in the next year with this Bosman Fuzzy filter. It's a very, very interesting technology. We have another interesting technology, that is the wastewater treatment plant Obere Lutter. It's about 100,000 population equivalent. Basic data is 300,000 population equivalent, but it's less in the meantime. And they have all sand filtration, and we changed the sand and put in granular activated carbon. And this is in total the cheapest way to rebuild wastewater treatment plant, and it's nothing else like this plant here, but it's an old one. So if you see, we don't look for a special technology in North Rhine-Westphalia. Every technology can be used, and the decision takes the wastewater treatment plant operation. And before he does a decision, normally he looks for costs. And in the meantime, and that is the map of North Rhine-Westphalia, on the left upper side, there starts the Netherlands. You see the river Rhine. And you see here 3 different colors. The yellow color is or represents wastewater treatment plants which are rebuilt and which are in operating or starts with operating within the next year. The red one, and this is very important, are wastewater treatment plants operators who make a feasibility study. And we finance feasibility studies with 70% of the cost, and a feasibility study costs about 30 to 50,000 euro. And this is the first step before a wastewater treatment plant operator decides to rebuild his wastewater treatment plant. And besides this, you are this pink color. The pink color represents wastewater treatment plants where are pilot Untersuchung. Not a pilot plant, where scientific pilot surveys are made. In the meantime, we have about 2-3 more of this, about 15 wastewater treatment plants who will rebuild her wastewater treatment plants. And you remember, we are looking for about 300 wastewater treatment plants who are possibly in the need to rebuild her treatment plant. Important is that there is no order from the ministry to do this till now. This all is made free. So the plant operator decides to make it. But if we look now to the fulfillment of the framework directive and the next management plan, which we have to do in 2015, we will look if we have to decide and to say to an operator, you have to do it. That will be a very bit difficult in the public, but I'm not sure if we can go further this way we have done before, because you will find a lot of wastewater treatment plant operators who will do it free, but there is some who don't want it, and possibly these are the very important for the rivers. So last 3-4 slides I will show. We look, of course, a lot of the money. And I told you we have now the experience from the feasibility studies and from operating wastewater treatment plants. And so we looked for standards to compare the costs of every treatment plant and to decide and to say to the politicians how much it would cost. So you can look for the comparison of ozonation and filtration, and it's clear in the investment costs, the ozonation is still the cheaper technology. So you have to change this investment cost in annual costs. I will not go further in the detail here. And you have to look how much would it cost in capital costs, so you can look how much it will cost for a person. And this is the relevant figure, and you see the bigger the wastewater treatment plant, the cheaper are the costs for a person. And if you look for 100,000 population equivalent, you are in the region about 10 to 15 cents per cubic meter wastewater. In the meantime, we find that the more feasibility studies we make, and the better the environmental science is, the cheaper becomes the cost. So in the meantime, I would say we can do it a lot of cheaper too, especially for the smaller wastewater treatment plants. Of course, we have looked for the cost for total North Rhine-Westphalia too, and so are different possibilities. If you look for the whole 390 search, that is the maximum we had to look for. You will have investment cost of 800 million euro, but you have to look, this will not be done within 1 year. It needs 10, 15 or 20 years. So the cost should be per annum in amount that is 10 to 20, 50 years, 50 millions we will spend for fundings, for instance. So I come to a summary. In North Rhine-Westphalia, we are sure we have to establish our wastewater treatment plants, not in total, but especially these wastewater treatment plants which have small rivers. Otherwise, we will not fulfill the standards of the Water Framework Directive, and we have proved is there a technology? Yes, we have not only one, we have more technologies. We have proved in a further way what are the costs of this, and we see the costs are in the region in between 10 to 15 cents per fresh water now. That means that is the amount the people has to pay for his wastewater. Last sentence. 15 minutes before I get a call from Düsseldorf, because we have at the meantime a big problem with Legionella in Warstein. Not in the beer, it's a good beer, it's a very good beer, but in the wastewater of this brewery, and that is a very, very big problem. So if we go look further, we don't have only to look for micropollutants, we have also to look for substances which are important for health. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. The opportunity for questions. Who will ask? Was it all clear? I can't imagine. Then I ask my question during my introduction again. Who thinks that we are a front runner if we compare?
Bossman.
Okay, but maybe you remember that I said that we were front runners in designing technologies, but not in implementing. And I can conclude, I think, that you are far ahead of us when we speak about implementing. I have one question for you. You said till now there are no obligations by government to introduce those techniques.
Yes.
Will such an obligation come in the next years?
Yes.
Okay.
It's difficult. I have to explain. I told you if we look to our water bodies, we see the ecological standard is bad. So we have to do something. And now the water authorities have to decide in the next 2 years what is to do. And we will find water bodies. It is clear that a wastewater treatment plant is responsible for the bad situation of the water body, and in this field the water authorization has to do something. And in the meantime, I like to provide this because, of course, the communities are not amazed, but they know they have to discuss with her people. There can be a reason for a water authority to say, okay, otherwise we don't fulfill the water directive. And important for us is not only the chemical substances which are regulated. It can be that a not regulated substance is responsible for a bad situation. And it is very difficult for a water authorization to explain this, and this is the problem. But we will do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, sorry, there was one question. Cora, of course, sorry.
Of course. My last question for this afternoon. Victor, do you think you will reach all the targets of the Wastewater Framework Directive of the future, and do you think it will be in balance, the measures you take on the wastewater treatment plants with other measures?
I'm very sure we will not fulfill it in 2015, and we will not fulfill it in 2021. I'm not sure if we will fulfill it.
That's almost a political answer.
But we have I will explain one Beispiel.
Example.
One example. The European Commission has sent us a letter. Germany sent a letter because we have one company at the river Werra that is Kali on Salz. Kali and Salz has a lot of wastewater with chloride. 70 million cubic meter per annum. And in the following, the river Werra till the North Sea. Werra flows to the Weser, and from the Weser in Bremen to the North Sea. The whole river has too much chloride. Chloride is a parameter which is not regulated, but the ecological behavior of the river is bad. And in the first management plant, which we sent to Brussels, we told Brussels the company will spend 350 million euro till 2015, but the good Zustand will not be reached. And the European said that is not enough. You have for us to say when the good Zustand will be reached. So you can see we will have to do in the next years more. And the management plan 2015 will be much more Inhalt. We have to tell much more what we will do, and therefore I think we have to look for wastewater treatment plants more than in the past.
Oké, thank you. Ik geloof dat we... Hadden we al geapplaudisseerd? Nee.